Why not? It's been a little bit since we last touched on the good old blue hedgehog. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Sonic Advance 3. It's time for us to actually wrap this trilogy up finally with what's honestly probably the most contentious entry in the trilogy. There's a lot of things that make Sonic Advance 3 very unique, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. A lot of it's kind of back and forth, love it or hate it. But worth noting, I think off the top of my head, this is the only game in the trilogy that not only has a multiplayer battle mode, but also just a straight-up co-op campaign option you can play. I have never messed around with that, so I don't know exactly how it feels, frankly. Like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and 3, as well as the first two Sonic Advance titles, you do have to select your character here at the start. With that said, you can swap at any point in time, like in Sonic Advance 2. With that said, as with the prior two Sonic Advances, you do need to unlock a majority of the cast. You only have Sonic and Tails to start. Knuckles, a certain rabbit, and a certain pink hedgehog don't get unlocked until you find them in the campaign in specific stages. But here's the thing, Sonic Advance 3 has a secondary gimmick. You select two characters at any point in time, and the combination and which order you do it actively really matters to how the characters individually play. We're going to be playing a majority of this LP though as Sonic and Tails, which is my favorite combo in the game. The evil scientist, Dr. Eggman. Dr. Eggman is planning to use the Chaos Emeralds to build Eggman Land. Sonic and his friends must put a stop to his evil scheme. What will happen next? And from there we get thrown into the hub world for our first level, Route 99. I'll talk more about this in a moment. While largely the control basics and momentum are the same as Sonic Advance 1 and 2, each character combo gets their own unique properties that lead to each having their own pros and cons. But most importantly is the partner's tag action, where you hold down the R button. When fully charged, you can unleash your partner's tag actions, with each partner having a different tag action when activated on the ground or in midair. Before we actually get into our first stage here, I am going to showcase Sonic and Tails as well as Tails and Sonic to showcase their tag actions as well as what their individual controls are with each other. And I'll be doing this for every character combo in the game as we gain new characters. Let's start off with Tails. Tails is probably my favorite tag partner in the game overall. His ground-based tag action is to throw your main character a very high distance in the air at a very high speed at a very slight angle, which is really useful at getting to very high heights quickly or even some obscure corners in level design. Meanwhile, his mid-air-based tag action is the more traditional flight mechanic where he grabs your main character and you can mash the A button to just fly higher and higher. Generally just really good for mobility. And Sonic, when paired with Tails, is your pretty standard Sonic. He's got the spin dash, he's got the standard jump, you can press the B button to do the little kick forward like in Sonic Advance 2. And he still has the trick actions you can do after a ramp or off of a spring, where you can just shoot him forward, you can send him downwards with a bounce attack type deal, or you can just give him a second jump. He is missing his little kick backwards from Sonic Advance 2, though. And Tails, when paired with Sonic, is also pretty box standard Tails. He's got his tail swipe like the prior games, as well as some of the early 3D titles. You can mash the jump button to do his mid-air flight, which does go higher, I believe, than if you do the tag option, just because of a matter of exertion, because he's not carrying someone. And he can do the dog paddle in water in the case you're actually in water for some reason with Tails in this game, which is more common than it was in Sonic Advance 2, admittedly, but still not the most common. Meanwhile, Sonic's tag action as a partner is actively the same whether or not you use it in midair or on the ground. He immediately throws you into that super speed boost mode where you get the after images that we also saw in Sonic Advance 2. Now you might notice there's also an icon on the top left that says S. That means we're currently a speed type character combo. This isn't really going to start mattering until we unlock more characters, but there are three different types of combos, namely speed type combos, power type combos, and flying type combos, depending on who your main character and their partner is. Generally, I tend to stick with the speed or flying type character combos, as the speed type character combos are the only one who can get into that boost state just by running about at high speeds, and while flight-based characters generally can do really good at getting high distances, vertically of course. Right here at the start of our first level is our first Chao. 9 Chao left. For a description of that, let's read Omo Chao here by holding up. This Chao is a hiding Chao. Find this Chao hidden on the field. There are 10 of those per overall world, and if you want to get the special stages in order to get the Chaos Emeralds like in most Sonic games, you need to find all of them in every world. Thankfully, it's not 10 per level though, it's 10 per world. Most levels average out at a total of 3 Chao, though some have 2, and at least 1 or 2 have 4 Chao in them in total. They actively lead into one of my least favorite things about Sonic Advance 3, the level design. I think a good way to put it is that Sonic Advance 1, on the whole, is very focused on the platforming itself, with each world having its own unique mechanics that they interplay well, with some decent speed. While Sonic Advance 2 is very much about keeping a speed flow going as you go through the level, Sonic Advance 3 kind of tries to do both and fails at both, because you'll be going high speed for a good amount of time and feeling good, and then immediately you'll reach a very stop-and-go platforming section frequently. And the two just don't interplay well together. On top of that, this game actively suffers pretty frequently from screen crunch compared to most of the other titles. As while you're going quickly through a section of the stage, you might not know there's a crusher block coming up that could just easily crush you if you're going too quickly, and it often will. This game loves having moving blocks, and if you're going too fast, you'll very easily just lose life after life getting crushed. I did on my first playthrough, I can tell you that much. So, the Chao themselves, 3 or so per stage, yes, but they are always in set locations. This does mean this game kind of repeats the same deal that happened in Sonic Advance 2, though, where that game's 7 special rings per stage were in set locations meant you have to follow usually one specific pathway if you want to get them all on one visit. Otherwise, you're replaying the stage again and again just to find them all. With that said, they do make an improvement over the special rings. Back in Sonic Advance 2, if you wanted to get to a special stage, you had to find all 7 in one run. In this game, you just need to find them over time. If you find only one on a run of a stage and finish the stage, that one will be saved, and you can just spend more time going into the stage, finding the rest of them one by one. The issue lies in actually doing the search without looking at maps online nowadays, as they hide some Chao in some pretty obscure corners of the stage that at times feel very dangerous to find, as there's a lot of times, and this was also the case in Sonic Advance 2, where if you're trying to go maybe lower down to a screen to find a Chao on the floor, you might just find yourself in a bottomless pit instead, and you have no way of knowing that, and so you've already died to it. And honestly, if that was where unlocking a special stage per world ended, I actively wouldn't mind the system too much. It'd be a little annoying, but at least finding the routes would just be a matter of memorization at that point, like in Sonic Advance 2. But there's one extra fold we'll see later on that makes this easily my least favorite special stage system in the series. Or at least the trilogy, more accurately. Well, actually, thinking about it, maybe of the series in total. At the very least, like bottom 3 off the top of my head. Ugh. So Route 99 as a whole does do a good job of introducing you to a lot of Sonic Advance 3's eccentricities, both in terms of the partnership system and the Chao, but also this game has a lot more timers tied to it in a level. There's a lot of switches you can press that'll make platforms spawn in for a short time period or open up a spring for a short time period that you need to kind of rush to get over to, and largely those timers are pretty generous, but every now and then there's one that's a little bit risky, which is actually one of the reasons I really like having Tails as a partner, because just being able to do that to get up a room pretty quickly is game-changing. One other change they actively did do from Sonic Advance 2, though, involves the rail grinding. Back in Sonic Advance 2, you could only really get on the rails if they were on a purely horizontal segment of it. In this game, you can jump on the rails on any section of them. With that said, if you jump on a rail and then jump back off, you're not going to be able to jump back on the rail, I think, until you've touched solid ground again. So watch out for that. As similarly to Sonic Advance 2, there are times where the rail you're grinding on is the only thing that's keeping you from falling into a bottomless pit. Not as often, though. If anything, falling off a rail in this game will usually just either take you to a lower pathway or make you fall back down a more vertically structured level. Before we get too deep into the game, though, we should probably talk about this game's story, because the intro doesn't exactly showcase what's really going on here besides Eggman's evil stop him. Specifically, to quote the story section from the manual, Dr. Eggman has used Chaos Control to break the world into 7 parts and plans to reign confusion by turning each into a Dr. Eggman empire. So, yeah, the world's in shards right now, and it wasn't just Sonic Unleashed that did that. Oopsie. Sonic and Tails, having been separated from their friends, are teaming up to return the world to its original state. To do this, they must find all 7 Chaos Emeralds and use Chaos Control to undo Dr. Eggman's mischief. But Eggman isn't resting on his laurels. He's used his engineering genius to perfect the ultimate fighting robot, and will do all in his power to stand in Sonic's way. More on that when we reach the boss fight of this world. Speaking of the 7 shard the world's been blown into in this game, let's talk about this game's level structure. Sonic Advance 1 and 2 zones each had 2 acts, with the boss fight either being fought at the end of Act 2 itself, or in its own third mini-act that was just the boss fight in 1 and 2, respectively. Sonic Advance 3 here instead boosts us back up to the Sonic 1 method of each zone having 3 acts, then a separate 4th act just for the boss fight. This makes each zone feel very long in the tooth, which is only exaggerated by the game's levels, at times feeling more like mazes as you worm your way back and forth through them. And that's on top of this game's hub worlds, which I should finally actually talk about. Each hub world is a massive platform that contains the 3 levels per zone, the special stage spring when you can finally unlock them, as well as a boss teleporter like the one we just walked past. There's also Omo Chow along the way for further tutorialization in the stage itself, bonus teleporters that take you to mini-games you can play for extra lives, as well as a large ring near the entrance that'll take you to the Sonic Factory where you can change your character duos, teleport to earlier worlds, and check on your collected Chow per world. On paper, I don't mind this, it's the execution I think it falters on. Each hub world in this game is more like a miniature maze where you need to search out the levels, where I think the better way to do it would have honestly been something closer to what Sonic Generations would eventually do, and just have it be more like a straight line you can walk in. I think I get why the hub worlds are there. They're there for A, a break to the players, B, give them a chance to swap their characters around if they want to. They can tutorialize level mechanics more directly in that because they can just place them there in order for you to traverse to the extra acts. But it instead, I think, adds a tedium that's not needed, as the further you get into a zone, it just takes longer and longer to, say, go back to the starting ring to swap your characters, or find the special stage spring. On top of even, say, finding the next act in the stage to begin with, or even finding the 10th Chow, as in most zones, one of the 10 hidden Chow is actively hidden within the hub world itself. That way they can do 3 per stage, hence why I say the average per stage is 3. There are some stages that have 2, and a couple of stages that have 4, but largely it's 3 acts with 3 Chow each, and the 10th Chow is just somewhere in the hub world. At this point, though, let's talk about my experience with Sonic Advance 3. This is a game I have owned, I think, since within a year of its release, but I got it a little bit more unusually than most games, where most games I own I got probably at GameStop or Toys R Us at the time, especially. I got Sonic Advance 3 technically through school. Specifically, and I know this is definitely a thing in the US and Canada, I'm not sure if it's a thing in the European Union or elsewhere. There was those old, like, scholastic book fairs they used to do. I think they still do them in schools today, but they would put out those little, like, thin, really shoddy paper book orders that kids could take home and, like, check mark next to or circle the books, or sometimes more educational toys or school supplies they wanted. Occasionally, towards the end of me getting those in, like, middle school or late elementary school, they would have video games in them, and Sonic Advance 3 was one of them, and that's how I ended up getting it. That probably would have been, like, latter half 04, first half 05, I want to say, because again, within around a year of the game's release date that happened, I think. But I genuinely can't remember, and when I first played the game, I liked it a lot, but I definitely found the tag system confusing as a kid, and I think that largely came down to my A, lack of experimentation at the time, but also B, really just getting too lost in the levels. Not for nothing, getting a little ahead of myself here. While there are some character combos that are just kind of straight up duty poo-poo, frankly, I do really like the tag system as a concept, and they do some really cool things with certain combos. It's just also a factor of what certain combos do to certain character base abilities that I just don't really enjoy nowadays. Sonic Advance 3, I think a good way to put it at large, is a game I really like a lot of concepts and things about, but I don't enjoy playing. So this here is one of the bonus minigames you can play for extra lives. There's generally 2 of these. There's ones where you just need to kill a certain amount of enemies within a time limit to get some extra lives, and then there's ones like this, where you need to hit the switch within a certain time frame to get certain points. If you reach the baseline of points, you get some lives to begin with, but if you do it within a certain time frame or go over the amount you'll need, you'll get bonus lives. Since if you get there fast enough, you can get like 7 or 8 points and just get extra lives on top of that. By the way, this is one of those games where the amount of extra lives you can have can exceed what the meter even shows. The counter tops off at 9, but it counts anything beyond that. So even if you have, say, 12 lives, it'll only display 9. That means you need to die 4 times for it to actually display you've lost a life, technically. So I didn't draw attention to it, but back in Act 3, we collected our 10th Chow. Upon doing so, a message came out saying, "Congratulations, you can now collect the SP key in this zone." That is the item I just grabbed. The SP key is a randomly spawning key that's in any level you enter in that zone until you collect it after collecting the 10th Chow. The thing is, that also means you now need to go back into the levels and search again for something else outside of the Chow in order to unlock the special stage. The key can spawn in roughly like 4 to 6 locations in any given act, and where it is within that is chosen at complete random. Not for nothing, in this playthrough, I actually get really lucky about finding them in the stage after getting the 10th Chow, but I assure you, that is not the usual way this goes. Usually it takes me like 5 or 6 minutes of searching a level in order to get it any kind of easily. And the thing I can never remember, so I always do it out of caution, I can never remember if you need to collect the key and then finish the stage, or collect the key and then you can just leave it outright with the pause button afterwards. I do the full stage completion just out of fear. Future me, if you could test that really quick, that would be nice. So upon getting the SP key, you need to find the special stage spring within a hub world and jump on it. Then you get a try at the special stage. If you fail, you need to go find another key. So don't mess up. The special stages here are somewhat interesting, as it's a take on concepts adjacent to the usual half-pipe that's in a lot of other Sonic entries, while doing a lot unique into itself. In this, you control both the Tornado 2 as well as your head character left to right along its wings. You can jump on or over certain obstacles for some bonus rings, all while trying to maintain the ring quotas set by the special stage in question. These can be fun, but by endgame, not for nothing, I think these get to be the strictest special stages in the Advance Trilogy and some of the strictest in the series in general. Something that's definitely a bit weird about them is depth perception, but I will say it's a lot easier to tell where things are in depth than they were in, say, the Sonic Advance 1 special stages. And in a way I can't really parse into words. I think a lot of the extra help in depth perception here compared to Sonic Advance 1, for instance, comes down to that scrolling floor below us, as that weirdly helps me map where things are in depth compared to the ones in Sonic Advance 1. Largely, I think the best special stages in the trilogy are those in Advance 2, even though I think they're also the easiest ones. They're just the most fun, albeit that's largely because they're just a slightly more in-depth version of the Sonic CD special stages, aren't they? If you successfully clear both ring quotas set by a special stage, you get your Chaos Emerald for that world, as has been patterned with Sonic at this point for a while now. If you want to get the true ending, you need to get all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Though unlike some other Sonic games, you can still get the normal ending if you have all 7 Chaos Emeralds. It depends on another action you do at the very end of the game. I'd say largely the special stages in this game play fine until maybe like special stage 5 or 6. At that point, the precision just gets notably upgraded on top of just the amount of rings you need for a given ring quota. With that said, since we have the Chaos Emerald as well as the 3 acts cleared, it's time for our first boss fight. And not for nothing, with a few exceptions, I think Sonic Advance 3 does have the best bosses in the trilogy, just because the pattern recognition I find generally kind of fun. But this is the fighting robot in question that Eggman has perfected. This is Gemerald. If you've played a certain other GBA Sonic game I haven't done an LP of yet, he probably looks a little familiar. That's because he's actively built using the data of Emerald from Sonic Battle. I've contemplated doing that game as an LP for years, but I'm just not sure how I'd handle it. He's going to be our recurring mini-boss throughout the game, and he's going to gain more attacks as we go. Here in the first fight, he just dashes left to right across the screen, bonk him on the head 4 times, and you should be fine. But notably, he also joins with Eggman for every single boss fight. As with the bosses in Sonic Advance 1 and 2, our first boss with Eggman is another hammer. This is the Egg Hammer 3. He's going to swing slowly towards one side before slamming down on the other, but he does try to aim his death for where he is on either side for where you are on it if you're on the same direction. My general mentality of this fight, stay close to him and then spin dash away as he's about to strike down, then hit him on the dome, and you'll do damage to him. If you're fast enough, you can actually jump over him as he's swinging back over to try and just lead into his next attack, but I've never been too confident about doing that, frankly. Generally, the bosses in this game I just find very fun. There's only really like 2 stinkers I find, and that's just because I think there's a little too much going on in those fights, or they're a little too random for my tastes. Now, if you're cheeky, you might think you can actively just stand on the platform that the hammer's attached to and wait there for him to slam down, but if you do that, he just slams the hammer straight down on top of your head, so don't stand on the center platform for too long outside of getting to the opposite side, because otherwise you can take a surprise hit or even a surprise death. Otherwise, not too bad of a boss fight. Pretty easy first one. Also, you heard it throughout the boss fight, you may have noticed earlier, this game actually does have voice clips for the characters as they do certain actions.
You're going to pay for this!
Also worth noting, the boss victory screen after you hit the gold ring is very flashy, so if you're photosensitive, watch out over the next few seconds. I don't recall if the voice clips in this game are fresh recordings or reused lines, but worth noting, everyone in this game's voice is reprised by their VA from Sonic Heroes specifically. So Ryan Drummond is Sonic, Scott Dreer is Knuckles, Dean Bristow's Eggman, William Corkery is Tails, all that jazz. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're heading into our second zone. See you guys then.